The general public's barely aware of how much of a mess the epilepsy gangster can make a person's life, but they're even more unaware of just how horrible the epilepsy gangster can be to the person's caregiver. Tonight we're going to start with a single mother who could not find a respectable daytime job because of the time required taking care of her son's epilepsy, be it picking him up from school or taking him to the hospital. She had to resort to becoming an exotic dancer at night, and she prayed to God to deliver her from the dance hall. Hear how she did it. One story is about a woman whose husband and the in-laws really didn't grasp the grip the epilepsy gangster had on her husband's life. And the more she tried to care for him, the more he hesitated and the more he denied that he had a problem. It eventually led to their separation, but that was enough to get him back on the bandwagon. They are now married for over 30 years, and he's actually become an advocate in the state of Texas. Thanks for joining us, and welcome to Epilepsy Gangster.
Epilepsy is an invisible disability. It can strike at the most unexpected moments, like the most devious gangster. Epilepsy is a criminal. The epilepsy gangster steals money from people. It doesn't matter if he steals it from college funds, whether it's from retirement plans, and some of his victims have to choose between spending money for food or spending it on medicine. The epilepsy gangster robs people of relationships and job opportunities. But most diabolical of all, the epilepsy gangster kills. Like all criminals, the epilepsy gangster must be stopped. Watch Tim Ulmer and his gang you're meeting, who are committed to ending the crime spree of the epilepsy gangster.
There's no greater bond than the bond between a mother and her offspring. And that mother will do all that she possibly can to provide for bringing that offspring up. It's exceptionally hard when that offspring has a disability. Jeanette Robinson is a marvelous inspiration. Jeanette, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Jeanette, tell us how Epilepsy Gangster came into your life.
Epilepsy Gangster came into my life when my son was 2. He had his very first seizure at 15 months of age. I didn't know that it was a seizure. I just thought he was having a nightmare because I never seen anything like it. I honestly am embarrassed to say that I never even knew what seizures were, never heard of them or anything. So he had the first little episode at 15 months of age and he didn't have them again. But when he turned 2, he had the same episode all over again. And they were bad. It was like witnessing my child being attacked by something in his sleep that I could not fight off of him because his eyes would be wide open and it looks as if he's seeing something that's scaring him. So I called paramedics.
Well, how did his seizures affect your household?
I had to drop out of college. So I was in college to become a hairdresser. And I had to drop out of school. I couldn't go to work. And I had just found out I was pregnant 3 months prior to him becoming sick. I was under a tremendous amount of stress while I was pregnant. I could hardly care for myself because he needed 90% of my care, sometimes 100% of my care. There were times that I sat in the hospital and I didn't eat and I was pregnant. So I had a really bad fear of my next child coming out or me losing my baby.
How did she turn out?
She turned out perfect. Sometimes I think that she was a miracle from God. I think that God knew that I was going to need her through this whole process, because without her, I don't know how I would have been able to get through none of this.
And did she help out with Christopher as she got older?
Yes. If it was not for my daughter, I don't know how I could have did any of this, because I barely had help with him. So now that she's older, she started helping me with Christopher around the age of 8. She just had this desire to want to learn how to give him meds. So if I was giving him meds, she would just ask me like, Mom, can I do it? So by the time my daughter was 9 years old, she was teaching other people how to give him his meds. If he spent the night at his grandmother's or his aunt's or his cousins, they would ask her, Amira, how much med, like how much med should I give him in this dropper? And she'll show them. If I was tired, it's like she knew when I was tired, because she'll tell me, okay, mommy, you can go and lay down and I'll take care of Chris. And I would go lay down and I would take a nap. But at first I was kind of scared. So I just tested her the first time, and I was just so amazed and threw back by what I saw. I witnessed my baby go in the kitchen and make him some snacks. She turned on his favorite TV show. She would take a heating pad and a blanket and wrap them up, and they would just lay there and watch SpongeBob together. Or she'll be playing with him. And she knew how to handle his seizures. So every time he would have a seizure, she would just pray. Even if I didn't know how to pray in that moment, or if I didn't have the words to say, my daughter would pray for her brother and just pray for God to bring her brother up out of it. Sometimes bath times, she would even help with bath times. She would help getting dressed. She would put him on lotion and deodorant. She was a big help. Without her, I couldn't have did it. And that's why I always say that, to me, my daughter is an angel. God knew that I needed her.
That's beautiful. Tell us what his seizures were like and what it required from you.
It required a lot of doctor visits. If I wanted to work, I had to work a night shift job. So that means no sleep in the daytime on top of no sleep at night, which became very hard. I started to develop depression, and I battled suicide a lot.
Was anyone able to give you help? Husband, parents, siblings?
No. Christopher's dad was not involved. He was very abusive. Also, because of Christopher's disability, his dad was embarrassed of him.
What was your alternative to provide for your kids?
So I would work from home, and I did hair when I was able to do hair, but I had to depend on government assistance. I had got tired of struggling at one point, because there were times that there was nothing to eat in the kitchen but noodles. And me and my babies would have to eat noodles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and ramen noodles. And I started dancing. I was so desperate, because me trying to work a job, they don't care. They don't care that you have a sick kid at home. So if you can't make it to work, you're fired automatically. And I resorted in dancing, because when you dance, you can go to work whenever you want to go to work. So if my son is in the hospital, I don't have to worry about getting fired or anything. So I had to dance at a show club. And that's also how I took care of my kids. And when I would go to work, I spent a lot of nights at work crying. I cried a lot. But that showed me the measures that a mother would go for their child. And I I did whatever I had to do to take care of my children. And I wasn't even worried about myself. It was always my children. My children need this. And I know that I'm the only provider. I had to provide for the kids. I had to feed the kids. I had to buy them shoes, clothes. I had to do everything by myself. And it was hard to do that.
What did it make you feel like to be in such an environment as a show club?
I felt terrible. I was not happy. I prayed a lot. I prayed and I cried a lot because I just could not understand why me. Why was I going through something like that to make me have to be in a place like that? And it would be people that would come in there and they knew I did not belong in there. And I didn't fit in. So I got a lot of respect in there. Because I would tell my story a lot of times. So a lot of people wouldn't even ask me for a dance. They'll just tip me and stuff.
How long did you have to dance?
First time I went, someone actually spiked my drink. And by the grace of God, I was able to make it out before it took into my body. I knew something wasn't right. My body felt so weird and I called for help. I did not want to go back, but I just kept struggling. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to go back, but this time I'm going to have to be careful. So I would go to work from 9 at night and wouldn't leave until like 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning. So I would just be sleeping my day away. And I don't know, like I said, I would just go and look in the mirror and I knew that I didn't belong. And I just prayed. I prayed a lot and I just asked God to remove me from being in that field. And I remember my last prayer to God about the situation. I told God, I said, God, I trust you because I want to quit. I trust you, but you're going to have to help me through this dark time that I'm in. And after that, it's just like, I didn't have to worry about anything because blessings just started coming out of nowhere and I was okay. It was by the grace of God. And I can't make this up. I would go to the bank sometimes and it would be money that I didn't even know that was in there in my account. So honestly, through this whole experience, without God, I couldn't have did it. So I would say that God took care of me and my babies. And I just depended on doing hair.
What single statement of advice do you have to other caregivers?
I've heard a lot of cruel things. Some things came from the people that I loved. I would be tired a lot. I would be depressed. I would be stressed. And sometimes I will hear people tell me that I wasn't allowed to be tired or stressed or depressed. And I just want people to know, I want the care providers to know that it is okay to have those feelings. It's okay. It's okay to be who you are as a care provider because people don't understand what we go through. They don't understand the sacrifices that we have to make. We give up our entire lives for our children. So I want the care providers to know that everything that we feel is normal. People try to make us feel like it's not normal to feel the feelings that we feel, but it's perfectly normal.
Jeanette, I think your story is very inspirational and touching about how dedicated you are to your kids. And I know my audience and I compliment you and your faith in God.
Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tim Ulmer. Between the last 2 seasons of Epilepsy Gangster, I had a wonderful milestone occur that was life-changing. I went 2 years without a seizure. All my life, since the age of 2, I've averaged a seizure every 3 weeks and probably been on over 30 medications. I have an epileptologist who keeps up on what's happening. And 2020, he put me on a new medication and the frequency of seizures lengthened. He told me that if I could go 2 years seizure-free, he'd even improve me driving again. Well, it turned out that this spring, I drove myself to church for the first time in 33 years. It was a dream come true. Make sure your epileptologist keeps you informed on what's new in treatments and medications.
At SK Life Science, time is turning the idea of a healthy world into treatments of the future, one patient at a time, knowing that every second counts, as every moment is priceless, bringing new options to patients with epilepsy. And the vision of a world where 0 seizures is not just a hope for humanity, but a possibility to bring more to life.
As we all know, with epilepsy, caregivers are the most important tools that any of us can have. It's especially challenging when you're married to that caregiver. With me tonight here is Luz Perez and her husband, Rick. She has been his caregiver now for over 30 years. Thank you both for joining us tonight.
Hi. Thank you, Tim. It's an honor being on your show. Thank you for having us.
Well, Rick, why don't you start out by telling us what something like the Epilepsy Gangster was in your life?
I didn't become epileptic until I was 15 years old in 1987. However, it wasn't until 22 years later that I was diagnosed with with epilepsy. At that point, the time that it actually came into my life, I was told and made to believe that everything was fine, everything's okay, that I'm healed and what have you. So I went on living my life believing that I was, and that the seizures I was having were normal. So I had to learn how to adjust my life around all that. And again, 22 years later, that's when I was actually hit with the truth that you have epilepsy. These seizures are part of what's been going on.
You really didn't have a good comprehension of just what was going on.
No, I did not.
Well, Luz, when you got married, was it noticeable that he had something wrong with him?
I noticed several changes in him. When you're living with somebody 24 hours a day, you see them all the time. You get to see them exactly who they are. And it's not just that during that time when you're dating, it's a whole different thing between the dating and when you get married and you live together. Once you start living together, that's when you start realizing, hey, something is going on.
When you first became concerned, Luz, did Rick care to listen to you?
No. No, I'm sorry. No, he did not. It was a rebellious time. It's like having I'm not saying it to me wrong, my love, but it's like a child throwing a tantrum. He was like, no, they're wrong. Everybody's you're coming up with stuff in your mind, and I was like, no, the doctors are telling us you are epileptic, and I said, I understand what I am going to do as a spouse for you. I will be your advocate. But at the time, he was just really being rebellious with me. He was like, nope, this isn't happening. Well, nope. He goes, and then after when it started sinking in, he really didn't like me at all. He blamed me for his diagnosis.
Tell me, what is the significance of being a caregiver?
As a caregiver with a person who's epileptic, you are constantly on a 24-hour worry, guard. And during this time when I'm working, and mind you, luckily I was working here in San Antonio when we first got his diagnosis. It was like, okay, is he okay? I'm only 20 minutes away from him, but I still had that distance where I didn't know what was going on with him. As I had to commute to Austin for my job, it became even harder because in the back of your mind, all you think about is how is your spouse doing? What is going on? Is he going to be okay? It's like a constant worry and a sickening feeling while you're working. And when you're spending most of your time with that focus, you totally forget about everything else. Your job goes to the back end. It's no longer as important as what's going on with him. And it made me lose opportunities because my job, it needed me to be there on a constant basis, and I could not be there on a constant basis. And it really put me in a position where it was either my job or him. And it's hard to find that balance because you want to, as a spouse, not just be the provider and his caregiver, but at the same time, you lose that provider part of promotion in your job and in your skills. And those all get put back aside for being the caregiver, for taking care of them.
Once Rick's condition started to become controlled, were you able to make up for it in your career?
No, I have not been able to make it up in my career right now at this time because unfortunately during all this time, I have been neglected my own self-health wise, and I'm paying the repercussions for that right now. I don't blame him for that. But as a caregiver, I can honestly say that you need to take care of yourself at the same time when you're taking care of someone who needs your care too, because it's a balance. You, as a caregiver, need to find a balance in every aspect of your life.
Well, Rick, what did you think having your wife tell you what you could and couldn't do?
During that time, I was going through my denial phase, or she says rebellious phase, where I just didn't want to accept anything. So I kind of, at that time, I was more focused on myself. So I kind of saw it as being controlling and not letting me do things. Of course, little did I know that, or took a while for it to sink in and find out that she's just looking out for my best interest.
Did it ever get in the way of your marriage?
Yes, it did. It did get in the way in our marriage. During this time of rebellion, like I said, he was like, I don't want to deal with this. I want out of this marriage. And I was like, you for real? And he's like, I can't deal. We had to separate for several days. It was hard because the first thing that you do as a caregiver, you're thinking about, is he going to be okay? Who's going to be there to take care of him? No one's going to do what I do right now. And during those days that he was gone, he came back and he was like, I am so sorry. I didn't realize how much I needed you. But honestly, it was hard. As a caregiver, you don't realize how much you do to care for that person. I mean, you really love that person if you're putting all your time, your effort, being that you are there for the appointments, you're the in between the doctors, you're the driver, because that's what I am. I'm the driver. And I could tell you, as a caregiver, it's been a challenge with a lot of things. It's not been an easy road. But I can honestly tell you, I lean a lot on God and a lot of praying, a lot of crying, need to lean on others like family to get you through it. And right now, I lean a lot on my church, my pastor, his wife, for everything that we're going through. Without their support, I believe our marriage would not be intact right now.
How has it been to raise children?
That also has been a challenge too, because when you have children who want to do, extracurricular activities in school, you need to find that balance. Like I said, I work a commute about 72 miles away from home on a daily, and having to be away from him, dealing with our daughter with school, having to drive back and forth from Austin, and it was a challenge. I could say that. And with our children, it was harder on them because, to be honest, they knew their father was epileptic. They just had never seen any.
Or some have any episodes.
Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, he had his absent partial seizures where, you know, they understood that and they would say, okay, Dad's coming back, it's okay. But when our youngest saw his good grand mal seizure, it was not pleasant. It really scared her. And she was already an adult. Mm-hmm. And it traumatized her. It really did.
Yeah, my wife actually talks about being a single mother of two. She has to provide for our house. My wife provides for us, but I can't take her away give her relief from her job in order to run our daughter to after school activities and to see friends. So
yes, that's exactly how you do feel. If anything happens to a caregiver, especially like I said, like your wife, myself, the whole home will collapse in some way. And as a caregiver, like I said, you need to take care of yourself, because without you taking care of yourself, there will be an issue, and the person that you're taking care of could not receive the care that you're hoping that they need, or not just the love that they require. Because, like I told my husband, I love him to death, regardless of his epilepsy. But you know, I have to look out for me first now, so that way I could be around for him if there's ever something that comes up or something that cannot can be controlled. But praise God, it's in control right now. Every day was hard just to step out that door, because leaving him alone was worrisome, because he would wander around and not even know where he was. He didn't even know people. And that scares me even more, because you're like, okay, he could just walk out the door and be lost. And now I would have to look for the person I love out in the streets, wondering, did someone do something to him? It's not what I expected to happen in our married life, but the reality is, you know, if you love that person, you will walk on water or through fire when you need to for them.
Rick, what words of advice do you have for viewers with epilepsy about their caregivers?
You have to actually put yourself aside and swallow your pride and kind of let someone else take over and care for you, instead of you thinking you can do it all yourself.
And Luz, what word of advice do you have for people with epilepsy or for other caregivers?
The people with epilepsy, I would say, just remember, you're not alone. Your caregiver is going through the same thing. They might not be having the seizure, but they're going with the seizure with you. They're right beside you when they are happening, and they're doing the best they can to make sure that you're being protected from harming yourself or harming others. As a caregiver, take care of yourself as best as you can, so you can be there for the person that you're caring for, to be there. And please be their advocate. If you see something that you don't agree with a doctor regarding any medications, you need to tell them something, because I've had to do that several times myself. Do not give up. And please, the way I was looking at it, turn to God, pray, get the support that you need. Because with, I know people like, oh, that's just religion. No, it's that there's someone in higher power who can guide you when you are at your worst. When you think this is too much, God won't give you too much that you can't handle.
Amen. That's absolutely beautiful, and I have all the faith in the world that you're going to be good contenders for Golden Anniversary one day.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
The Defeating Epilepsy Foundation is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping those battling epilepsy. We provide advocacy and educational services to those battling epilepsy at a global level. For more information about our projects and services, please visit our website at www.defeatingepilepsy.org or email us at info@defeatingepilepsy.org. Please like us on social media and follow us so you can see how we are making a difference. Thank you for your support, and together we will defeat epilepsy.
Hi, I am Natalie Beavers, and I am one of the many survivors living with epilepsy. My life has been filled with many ups and downs. It's just a part of life. I am proud of the person that I am becoming, and as I stand in the face of this relentless disorder called epilepsy, I want you all to know that I am me.
This man inevitably became a master of storytelling in English literature, despite a lifelong battle with epilepsy. From humble beginnings, he rose to fame as a social critic, advocating for the poor, the working class, and the vulnerable, perhaps most famously for A Christmas Carol and David Copperfield. He brought unforgettable characters to life and exposed harsh realities in Victorian society, from child labor and debtor's prison to the abuse of the poor. Some of his notable characters had the falling sickness, as epilepsy was known in British 19th century. He described his characters' fits with such medical accuracy that doctors were amazed, including Monks in Oliver Twist, Guster in Bleak House, and Bradley in Our Mutual Friend. His writing style combined humor, vivid descriptions, and a deep empathy for humanity that made his reading popular across cultures. Readers saw their personal struggles mirrored in his pages. Many of his novels were serialized, further expanding the popularity of his novels. His novels weren't just stories. They were calls for reform and compassion that influenced public opinion and inspired change. His influence extended beyond literature. He was a popular public speaker, philanthropist, and reformer who pushed for social justice. His works remain a cornerstone of English literature, studied for their artistic merit and their profound social impact. His name was Charles Dickens. No one is useless in this world who lightens the burdens of another.
Ooh, Epilepsy Gangster, this twister is going to blow you away just as easily as it blows away a cow or a barn. And for the rest of you, God bless you and may you be seizure-free.